Now this illustration deals with marking in accordance with NEC 240.83. Now this illustration illustrates the markings or circuit breakers that do not have certain markings. Now notice a circuit breaker in the quick cap will basically hold 3 times its rating at 600 volts or less. So a 200 amp circuit breaker will hold about 600 amps when you do your 3 times 200. Remember the fuse now at 200 amps times 5 would hold 1,000 amps. So that's why sometimes fuses are used mainly with motor loads and other types of loads that require inrush values to start, run, and operate the load and so forth. Now, the size, it's a 200 amp. The interrupting rating is 10,000 amps. And the voltage on it is a slash mark voltage, 120, 240, as you see in the illustration. Meaning what? Well, if you really looked at 240.85 of the code, it would state that 120, 240 or 277, 480 mark type breakers with the voltage rating could only be used on a solidly connected ground type system. Now, this particular breaker, as you see, is rated for switching duty. But a straight mark breaker, say 480, 600 volt, maybe 240, they could be used on any system. But the slash marking that you see in the boxed in information to the right of that breaker, basically, just kind of speaking, if it references voltage to ground, phase to phase voltage, as you see there, 120, 240, it could only be used on a solidly connected grounded system that we can read in great detail about in volume 2 of the Stallcup's electrical design book if you happen to be interested. But you can go to 240.85 and obtain how a maintenance electrician or electrician would replace a breaker that was being replaced. And the grounding part of the system is very important, as 15.9.9 of 70B states. And then when we review chapter 14 of 70B, we're actually referred to 240.85 to replace breakers so that we don't make a mistake and put a slash mark breaker on a system that it's not supposed to be put on, because it's only approved for solidly connected grounded systems. Now the other markings is below the circuit breaker, and it's boxed in information. It says circuit breaker should have markings as follows: amperage rating, voltage rating, and any type of interrupting rating. Now basically, if a circuit breaker is not marked, it's only good for 5,000. But this one was marked 10,000, maybe 22,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, 60,000. But it'll be marked, and then you know what amount of short circuit current, ground faults, say available short circuit current is capable of interrupting. Now, the name or trademark of the manufacturer would be there, such as it might be a square D breaker, it may be a Cutler hammer breaker, but the manufacturer is marked on there. So this illustration 9-43 simply illustrates how circuit breakers are required to be marked in accordance with NEC 240.83, so the installer will know exactly what this breaker will provide. For example, a breaker may only provide short circuit, ground fault, and overload protection capabilities. Or it may contain and have available to the user short circuit, ground fault, overload, and GFCI protection. On the other hand, it may provide short circuit, ground fault, overload, GFCI, plus AFCI protection. So we know GFCI protections in 210.8 A and B. If we're dealing with the AFCI protection, then we know we can go to section 210.12 and pick up the rules there for it, along with Article 404 in the NEC. So this figure 9-43 is illustrating the markings that are required to be on circuit breakers in accordance with the NEC 240.83.